Hi, welcome to Power of 10, a show about design operating at many levels of Zoom, from thoughtful detail through to transformation in organizations, society, and the world. My name is Andy Polaine. I'm a design leadership coach, service design and innovation consultant, educator, and writer. My guest today is Skot Waldron. For 20 years, he's worked for clients such as JP Morgan Chase, CDC, Georgia Tech, the Home Depot, you would say. The Coca-Cola Company has included national and international communications programs. He believes your influence, your alignment as an organization, and your ability to execute effectively all begin with you and how you communicate. Skot unlocks people through little aha moments that bring big transformation. Skot, welcome to Power of 10.
Thanks, Andy. It's good to be here. And Depot sounds so much cooler. So we can call it that. We can call it that. I think they would be weirded out if I walked in there, big construction, big box store, and I said,
I also
"Hey, I'm
say
here.
aluminium,
Yeah, exactly. They'd be like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." In my garage,
in your aluminium depot.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So, Scott, big day for you. Why is it a big day for you?
It's a big day. One, because I woke up. Another, because when I went to Amazon.com today, I noticed that my book was there. So, I just launched a new book today, Unlocked, a 52-week guide for the intentional leader. It's awesome. It's, as anybody who's written a book, published anything, it's a labor of love and put a lot into it. And then you go, why did I do that? That was exhausting. And then you go, I can't wait to do the next one. So I don't know if I'm to that point yet, but yeah, it's up there.
Yeah, and it's just the start, right? That's the thing with all of these things. It's
oh wait, it's not the end.
It's not the end. I can tell you, it's not the
Andy?
end. It's the start. Yeah, you were about to go through a very big process. You're probably doing a million podcasts too. So before we get onto the book, and I'd like to get onto it quite soon, but just tell us, I've read the bio, but tell us a bit about yourself and, how you've got to where you are now.
Well, it's been a little bit of a journey for sure, as everybody's life quite is. I studied graphic design in school. Graphic design, went to a special private design school here in Atlanta, and immediately got recruited and moved up to Chicago and worked up in Chicago for a design firm up there for 7 years. And then my wife and I got pregnant, and we said, hold on a second. Well, my wife got pregnant. I didn't get pregnant, but it was, So then we said, it works. Okay. I didn't have to tell you because I could show you some pictures. We said, we are not going to raise our kids here. Our family's all south. It's cold. It's expensive. It's flat. Yeah, we don't want to raise our kids here. So we said, hey, we're moving back to Atlanta. Love you guys. And they said, okay, well, how about you become managing partner and you open our office in Atlanta? And I said, oh, okay. So very accidental, but it happened. And I launched our Atlanta office, ran that for 12 years. I'm still technically the managing partner of that firm called Multiple. If you go to multipleinc.com, you can see that. But 95% of what I do now is leadership, culture, communication, internal communication development, as opposed to my prior life when I was really focused on external communication, brand strategy. How do we get our message to the world? How do we capture and create solutions to design problems and do those things? Now I have shifted and take all that same thinking of my external brand strategy and design work, and I incorporate it to internal culture and leadership. And so it's a little bit of a different twist on leadership development and what I apply there. But that's kind of my thinking. So I'm always talking about, your leadership brand. Like, what is that? What are people saying about you when you're not around? And how are you being intentional about shaping that as much as you can in the minds of those that you are selling ideas to or selling anything to as a leader?
Okay. So why should, because this comes up a lot. I know this from, my days in consulting, and particularly for a big management consulting too, where, to get the promotion, someone will have a conversation with you about your leadership brand and so forth, or the kind of the narrative. Why should we care? Like, why don't I just turn up and be me? And who cares about that?
Because we want a job one day. Sometimes we want to get married. Sometimes we want our kids to like us. Sometimes we want people to buy into our ideas. Any of those reasons are the reason why we should care what people think about us or say about us. And that mantra, when we were kids, we would go to school maybe, and we would come home and we were super upset because Johnny says my backpack's ugly, or Nancy says that I'm dumb at math, all those things. And then your parents would say, forget Nancy, don't listen to anybody else. It only matters what you think. It doesn't matter what they think about you. It only matters what you think. That we used to go, yeah, you know what? Stick it to them. I don't care what they say. Now, there's some healthy stuff there. Like it matters more what we think about ourselves. Agree. But it does matter what other people think about us, because we are trying to sell ourselves or sell our ideas. And in order to do that, we have to have influence. And if we don't have influence, we don't have any power. And that's a problem.
But you're not talking about sort of being a fake version of yourself, though, are you, in this?
Some of us fake it a little bit. Yeah. I mean, we'll fake it a little bit.
So there's definitely a bit of a kind of fake it before you make it thing. I think that it's important in that. And there's definitely, I think, this sense of, leadership can be a bit of a gig where you sort of go on stage and you're a kind of slightly larger version of yourself. But I'm sort of talking about not being something, avoiding being something you're not.
Well, let's talk about it from the corporate standpoint too, and say, aren't there companies that try to do that? Aren't there companies that try to be something they're not? And how long does it take for them to, they can come out of the gate that way, but over time we all kind of see what it is. And I think it's the same way with people. We can fake it a bit. I can come out of the gate as a rock star and all these things, and all of a sudden you're thinking all these great things about me, but eventually it will surface. And that's usually under times of stress. Usually under times of stress is when our true character is revealed, and people will see it. And so who have we been up to that point? And I think a good example of that was COVID, that ignited the corporate world to say, hey, corporations, we're this, we're that, we're this, our values are this, and we're doing this, and we do DE&I training and all these other things. But then when COVID hit and they started taking action during that time, people started looking at them and going, whoa, wait a second. You said that we were this, and now you're saying this, and now you're treating people this way. And it kind of came to the surface under those times of stress, and people saw who they really were. And I think it's those times that reveals that same thing about us.
Yeah, I think that's still going on quite a lot, actually, at the moment. It's my last two guests, actually, I think have kind of hit the nail on the head quite a lot about that. There's a bit early on in the book where you say, which I really liked, you said, consider this a journey as a conversation between your present and future selves. So that maybe slightly answers my question, in that it's not being something or pretending to be something you're not. It's about kind of working out what you could be and sort of working your way towards that. And that's so much easier said than done. The book is, tell us how the book is structured, and this idea of unlocking that is sort of central to the title of the book as well.
So the title, let me start there real quick. The title Unlocked is also taken from my podcast of the same name, Unlocked with Skot Waldron. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. Unlocked is this idea that's been stuck in my brain for a long time. And it goes back to the injustice I see in the world, and the thing that like hurts my heart. We talk about that as brand strategists a lot. What's that thing that hurts your heart? What's that cause that you want to fight for? And when I see people caged up I see people fearful of having or being who they are, not having permission. And I think that's the key word, permission, to be who they are. And also not giving people permission to be who they are. Feeling like I have to be this thing. I put myself in this box because of what they expect of me, because of what I ought to be, because of what I should be, because of what I was told I should do, because all these things, people feel caged in. And that feeling of being caged in is what I'm trying to fight.
Right.
The freedom of feeling unlocked and that's what this whole bird icon's about, right? The freedom to fly, the freedom to just explore and to be me. I've got a shirt on that says free to be me today. It is that power when that gives people that permission to light up and go, now I don't feel caged in. I feel like I have permission from my boss, from my parents, from my siblings, from my wife, from my husband, like whoever, to be who I was designed to be. That's what this whole Principles Unlocked is about. And this book is a 52-week guide to that. So perfect for somebody who wants to launch that, better leadership idea in 2024. It is created for the intentional person that's a little bit strapped for time. I did it because I've heard so many leaders say, gosh, another leadership book. I just don't have time to dive deep into these leadership books. It's like, 300 pages of really cool stuff. And there's beautiful, I read them all the time. I love stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to create one for people that could spend 5 to 10 minutes a week reading this. So every chapter is a week.
Yeah.
So you go in, you read a quote like you've got up on screen here.
Yeah.
Massive versus passive action. It's a quote by Brooke Castillo. She's a life coach. And this is an example of, so one of the quotes, some of them will be from me, some of them will be anonymous, some of them are going to be attributed to other people. So you have some inspiration. And then what will happen is I'll give some commentary on massive versus passive action. What does that even mean? How do we put that into context? What does it mean for us as people and as what we can do with that? So when we talk about massive versus passive action, how can we put that in? How do we incorporate that into our thinking? And as you can see here, it's, 5 paragraphs. I mean, it's not even a full page. So you get some short inspiration. You go to application. This is another differentiator where short bite-sized bits of inspiration. Now I'm going to be prompted with a couple of questions. So where are you taking passive action right now? When we think about passive versus massive action, that passive action is kind of, exploring, studying, researching, dipping toe in the water, talking to other people. You're gathering information. A lot of us are really good at gathering information, but we don't act. We don't take that massive action of jumping in the pool. We just kind of dip our toe in the water, dip our toe in the water, dip our toe in the water, and we never take the massive action that really drives that change. There's a place for passive action, but there's a time for massive action as well.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I prompt you through these things to kind of think about it. Intentional thought.
Yeah.
What do I do with this? And then I want you to have an accountability partner. I encourage you to share this with somebody. When we have accountability, it helps us perform better, especially when we know that New Year's resolutions fail after, a couple of weeks. How do we hold ourselves and other people accountable? Then there's a transformation section. So inspiration, application, transformation. Transformation is at the end of that week. We look back on the week and we go, what was the result of the massive action that I took? And how did that compare to the passive action? So now I'm thinking about it. I'm going, And then I've got, some other prompts here. Do you know yourself better than you did? That's what I want you to do. I want you to know yourself better so you can lead yourself better. So every chapter is this way. Every week is this way. Inspiration, application, transformation. A little bit at the beginning of the week, 5 minutes or so, a couple minutes of transformation at the end, and you're good. If you take these incremental steps, I believe every week, if you fall off the wagon, it's okay. Like jump back on. Like it doesn't say week 1,
you have to do
December,
the first week of January or something.
January 1st, right? It doesn't say that. Your week could be week 1, and then you jump into week 2 in February. Like, it's whatever you want it to be. Jump around the book if you
Yeah.
want to do that as well. Find some things that you want to apply in your life and do it that way too. There's 3 big sections: know yourself, and then love yourself, lead yourself. And so
Yeah.
those are the 3 main sections of the book.
So I was about to ask you about the sequencing of it, if, because it is 50, the obvious thing is, well, 52 weeks in the year. So I will start on the 1st of January and go through. But if you can jump around, obviously you go out of sequence. You've got those 3 sections of know, love, and lead. Within those, or within the whole kind of thing, is the sequencing important? What were you thinking about in terms of the way you sequence the book?
Yeah, there is an intentionality about structuring it that way. It all starts with self-awareness. Everything starts with self-awareness. We have to know ourselves before we can lead ourselves well. We
Yeah,
have to know
absolutely.
ourselves before we can truly love ourselves enough and appreciate what we bring to the table. So I really want you to do the sequence, right, of starting in that know yourself stage of how do I uncover some aha moments about me, some tendencies I have. What are those things that hold me back? What are those things that I really shine at? Where can I really, launch who I am? And then you go into that loving myself more. Now, some of it's a little bit touchy feely, but most of it is just appreciating the contribution that I bring. It is
Yeah,
about valuing who I am and what I bring to the table so that I can learn to share that more. Like, there are
yeah,
things that I do that you don't do. And how can I discover those more? These prompts through this section will help you discover that. Then I believe when you know yourself well, when you love the things that you bring to the table, will you truly be able to lead yourself more intentionally as well. And the lead part is really when you start to go, okay, how do I lead myself and build that personal brand, that leadership brand that's going to make me proud and create some influence? But it also, that's when I start to multiply. That's when I start to build into other people. When I start leading myself well, I lead by example, and I can also start to, that's when it talks about how do I lead others as well.
yeah.
So that I want you to do you first, work on you first, then we can work on multiplying that to other people.
It's, it's exactly the way I kind of think about it too, or coach as well. In that, I've often said the same thing: you can't lead others until you can lead yourself. And one of the reasons is that I think that, in a leadership position, I talked about sort of being you're slightly on stage and being a sort of larger version of yourself in some respects, and certainly your actions and some of your decisions have a greater ripple effect. Whether that's a whole company, or whether that is just affecting a team of people around you. And certainly when your buttons are pushed and when you're stressed and you start acting out, those things are writ large for everyone else. I guess we might as well invoke Elon Musk again, but you kind of see someone having it really writ large, kind of having I don't know what he's having a moment at least, and acting out, on the big stage. But even on a kind of in a smaller environment, I'm going to know myself when there are certain things that I just push my buttons and they stress me and I act in a certain way. And then afterwards I think, oh, that was really unwarranted, or that hasn't kind of, most of the time these days, it turns out in sort of bad parenting moments where I'm like, oh, I'll put $50 in the therapy jar for my daughter. But obviously in a workplace, that can really have a massive effect, and particularly on more junior members of staff, people who report to you. So I really kind of think that inner work is terribly important. You said something just now, I want to kind of pick up on. You said, this might sound a bit touchy feely, and I have the same thing. So I have a thing, I have an activity I do. It's called a future work visualization that I do with my coaches. And I often find myself saying, well, there's a bit of it you're going to find a bit woo woo, but why do we do that? Why do we always feel like we have to couch language, or hedge our language about stuff that's about feelings and loving yourself, and being stuff that is really core and central to being a human being, um, and yet somehow we feel very uncomfortable about that. What's going on?
I had this same conversation on my show a little while ago. It was an episode that launched last week with Marcel Schwantes. and he is all about, the episode's about unlocking leadership
Mm,
through love. And that's his thing. All he does is talk about kind of this love and how do we lead through love, and it's the idea of servant leadership and things like that. But
mm.
I asked him the same question. I was just like, why do we like, what is this love thing that we talk about? And why don't we talk about it more? And what's the fear of bringing it into the workplace for some generations?
Mm.
One thing I'll ask you, and so are you Generation X? Where are you in that?
I am Gen X. Yes, I am indeed.
Okay.
I'm 52. Yeah.
That is my that here. Let's throw this theory out there. Okay.
Okay.
And we can talk about it. We've got baby boomers, massive generation. We've got millennials, massive generation. We've got the forgotten generation,
Gen
the
X.
Gen Xers in the middle. And we are the bridge. We are the ones that understand probably the boomers a bit more. We understand the millennials a little bit, right? We kind of get it. Um, they tend to not get each other very much, but they
Yeah.
are they are the largest percentage of our workforce right now.
Yeah.
When we look at that, we look at where the baby boomers came from, which was a mentality of work, of collect the paycheck, come to work, grateful to have a job, be loyal to the company,
Job
be
for
loyal
life.
to the thing.
Yeah.
And then we have the millennials that come from a different mindset of I'm doing things more that fulfill my purpose. Then Gen Zers are more about I'm doing things that work is more of a hobby. I want to enjoy what I'm doing. This whole mentality shift of the younger generations, we could say, have the touchy feeliness to them.
Yeah.
The older generations don't necessarily have that. So I wonder if you and I, as the Gen Xers, and believe that the touchy feely stuff is important, the humanness of leadership and work. But we also understand that there are some of the baby boomers that came from a generation where that didn't exist. So are we priming the pump? Are we anticipating eye rolls? And so we kind of go into it defending it for a second, but saying, hey, give it a chance. I don't know. What do you think about that theory?
Yeah, that could well be. I think maybe well, first of all, I think you made me feel much better about being a Gen Xer. Um, but I think the second thing is, I guess, yes, we're sensing the need for it, but also sensing the kind of how it makes us queasy, or it makes us not queasy, but a little bit sort of uncomfortable to bring it in because it feels a little bit foreign. Um, I mean, I'm a firm believer that one of the biggest lies in work is this idea of it's not personal, it's business. And we talked about COVID before. I think COVID, it was a real moment where you saw those boundaries that had already been sort of encroached, ironically, by work, because of persistent messaging and persistent contactivity and everything in people's lives. But then working from home and COVID just completely kind of collapsed those in on themselves, and they became so overlapped. It was comedic when that famous sort of BBC interview when the guy's kind of kids came in behind him, and then it just became the kind of the thing that everyone's just used to now. And this idea of like seeing what's behind people in their homes and just seeing into people's lives, and and also people got used to this idea of I don't go into work and have a commute where there's that sort of ritual separation between that life and my work life, and so it's much, much more blended. And I think you're kind of seeing almost like all the sort of back to work stuff or back to the office stuff policies. It's like a kind of backlash of business of that. Maybe it is a boom. I don't know. I don't know if I would want to generationalize it entirely in that sense, but I definitely think there's like this sense of the kind of business part of business saying, no, get rid of all that personal stuff. We would just want you to come back in the office. I kind of feel it's not going to go away, and I do feel like this kind of work that you're writing about in your book is more and more essential because I just think people. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of misery in work still, and it's going to break or it is breaking.
I could agree with that. And I think that COVID, I'm going to go back to that a little bit. And agree with you in the sense that I think that COVID accelerated the humanity of work a bit more. Is probably already going,
Yeah.
to that direction. Um, but I think that COVID probably accelerated it quite a
Yeah.
bit. Because at that time we saw a lot of humanity and empathy going around the entire globe. We were all in this together, all
Yeah.
kind of feeling the same thing. And the dollars and cents started to not matter as much at that
Yeah.
time because humanity took precedence, which it should have. And glad it did in most cases, right? Glad it did in most cases. So
But I do feel like there's this sort of almost like this backlash. There was this sort of the Great Resignation, and then it feels like the world of business has gone, oh, that's a kind of terrible idea. Let's get back things in order.
mm,
And one of the things was, obviously then massive, well, certainly in tech, a lot of layoffs, almost as a sort of like, well, we'll show you now.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
it did. I can see that.
yeah. So, this is your first book. So, what I feel awful asking this because I'm in the middle of kind of not writing a book that I really am trying to write about this leadership bit. But what took you so long? How, what most people, there's a sort of an itch to scratch, or there's a kind of build up to this. So what was it for you?
Oh, what was it for me? So many things. I will probably say it was ultimately my own self-preservation that prevented me from doing that. There for years, people have been asking me to write a book. Hey, do you have a book? Do you have a book? Do you have a book? In all my keynotes I would give, hey, do you have a book? It's like, no, but I have this one that I can promote and sell. So it was always somebody else's book, and which I believed in and promoting, but I never had my own. Then I I would have authors on my podcast all the
Mm,
time. Authors are fantastic because they're always, they're easy guests. They're always wanting to talk about something, So having an author on my show was kind of this like constant thing. It's like, and I would ask them questions. How was it? What did you get? And I was taking a lot of passive action, Andy, a lot of
right.
passive action, exploring what it would look like. And then I would start thinking, then imposter syndrome would seep in. I'd go, I would read Adam Grant's book or something, or Simon Sinek's book, and I'd be like, wow, this took so much research. And because, they researched everything, especially Adam. And you read these books and you're going, 300 pages of raw research. Ugh, that's so intimidating. Like, I'm not going to do that. I don't even know if I can write 300 pages of stuff. So then I start thinking of all this stuff. So I'm sabotaging the whole thing. Then I'm just going to say it on the show. Chat GPT came out. And I was like, this is interesting. What is this thing? And I started using it as a brainstorming mechanism
Yeah.
to get my ideas out. And I was going, huh. And I was experimenting. What would a book on, like, give me 10 chapters on a book on personal brand leadership? What would that be? And
Mm,
I just want to see what it comes up with. And then I go, oh, that's interesting. What would an intro paragraph for that look like? Oh, that's interesting. And so I would start to, like, it would
like a
generate thought
writing
for me.
partner.
It was like this collaboration partner,
Mm,
and I would start to use it to start to generate ideas on thoughts. I had also, second part, been collecting quotes for a decade from people
yeah.
that inspired me, from books I've read, from speakers I've heard, podcasts I listened to. And I said, what am I going to do with all these? Oh, so quote, I don't feel like I want to write 300 straight words. I like short, punchy, actionable stuff. I'm an actionable type thinker, leader, speaker. Said, I'm going to incorporate my brand into this. I'm going to use the quotes, short, punchy inspiration with application. And I want people to take action and start to move. So I started to write like one. It would take me, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes to write one. I was like, okay, that's good. I'm going to write another one. And then I'll write another one. And I just started writing them. And then it started becoming a thing. And I was like, I can do this. So in my book, there's a quote in there that talks about how it's really hard to ride a bike that's not moving.
Yes, yeah, I remember. It's quite early on, right? I'm just going to find it. There we go.
Somewhere in there. You got it?
Yeah. I'll get it up. Yeah,
So,
Robert G. Allen, right?
yeah. So Robert has this quote up there, that's the way it was. It's really hard to ride a bike that isn't moving. Get started, things become easier. Boom. That's what happened to me. And I just did it. I started taking some massive action. That was a catalyst for me that pushed me over into where I could become better. And so I started to do it. And then the ball just started rolling. Got editors, got a designer. One of the designers that worked for me at my agency for a long time designed the book, Liz Butler. She's awesome.
That's very beautiful.
Grateful for
Good
her
job, Liz.
and her time. Good job, Liz. And so did that. And yeah, that's what happened. I've done it. And then I don't know if I'm as crazy as some of those other authors that are like, I interview and I'll say, so you wrote the book. They're like, oh yeah, I've got 2 more that I'm working on right now. And I'm like, what? Like, take a break, man. Like, I don't know. I'm not that psychotic.
I know there's a few people I know actually, but there's one. There's a very good Jungian psychoanalyst called James Hollis, and he's in his 80s now. And I interviewed him on my podcast ages ago. It's still my number. Interestingly, for a podcast that's ostensibly about design, it's still the number one most listened to, and it's about how to find meaning and purpose in the middle part of life, in the middle stage of life, or the second half of life is his thing. And the resonance obviously with kind of what we do is Jung had this idea of the first and second half of life, and you go through the middle passage which is kind of really difficult, and you start letting go of a lot of things. And his idea was, what he said once: the first half of life is a necessary mistake, and that we in our culture we have a lot of focus and a lot of role modeling of that first half, which is usually about kind of building up family, wealth, career, and all the rest of it. And the second half of life, so actually sort of settling back into becoming a wise elder and kind of letting go of some of those things, and and letting some doors close behind you. So he's very, very good. I can recommend his stuff. Anyway, I'm just in awe of the fact that he seems to turn out a book a year. I know it's the same with the best-selling authors, and they're just kind of cranking them out. I don't know how they do it. They probably don't use any social media. That's probably what they do.
Yeah, that's it.
So it brings me to a question though, which is, as I was reading through it, and I was going to think, well, this is really great. I would like to defend coaches and say it probably doesn't, replace having a conversation with someone on that kind of regular basis and the coaching, and partly because, a book is by its nature a kind of a static thing, and you talk about having a kind of an accountability partner in here, which I think is really important. It's obviously a role that coaches play. One of the things that struck me though is that I think this would work very well for people who are quite well self-motivated, and I'm interested on your view, how well you think this will work for people who really struggle with that, who really struggle to they feel a bit lost, struggle to get started, or they start and then kind of stop again, and all of that, because that's quite a common pattern, right?
It is. And it hurts my heart because I think they're in a tough spot. And the reason why I say that is not all of them are in a tough spot. I think that those that find it tough to stick to things with consistency and to be self-motivated to kind of keep doing these things over and over again, because of that discipline that's required. They tend to explore different ideas. They get excited about one thing and then get excited about another thing. Then that excitement that fuels them and how they inspire the world can also be a distraction. Some of those individuals have resources for coaches and coaching.
Yeah.
Some of them do not.
Yeah.
They either can't afford it. Maybe they're entrepreneurs and they don't have a corporation that is, has purchased coaching for them, supplying that for them. And so this book was an attempt to also help those individuals. So not
Yeah.
only those that are in corporations with teams that could take this and use it as an internal corporate book club, or because that would be awesome. If people wanted to do it that way. I already have people that are saying, I'm going to take my team through this. We're going to use this each week as a team, which would be awesome. But some of these people, they don't have that. So in my first chapter of my book, it talks about the importance of accountability and why I am really pushing you to do it, because those individuals that don't, normally have all that discipline that to really push through, accountability is the thing that is going to
Yeah.
help them through it. And there's 2 research studies that I cite in the first chapter. And one of them was this theory called tend and befriend, the tend and befriend theory. And this theory is all about the idea that during stressful times, during things that are, when we're really pushed against the wall, when and women tend to do this more than men, we seek community. When we
Yeah.
seek community and support, we have people that are like-minded, people that rally around us, people that hold us up, people that can speak vision into us, where we get that, because at times we'll get discouraged, and we can push that ideal. The second study that's featured in that chapter was done by some researchers in Virginia, where they had somebody stand and look at a hill alone, and they had 2 people stand and look at a hill together. That hill looked 20% steeper when looking at it by myself versus having somebody that was going to climb it with me. When somebody's going to climb that hill with me, that hill looked 20% less steep. If I look at something and I go 52 weeks, that is a long, I don't stick to anything for 52 weeks. I get it. I'm with you. If I have somebody with me that kind of builds in the habit that's climbing that hill with me, it's going to be 20% less steep. And I think that there's some power to that and some
Mm.
opportunity for people to climb this mountain together.
I was amazed by that hill study. Actually, I think it made such a nice metaphor as well, which was also kind of forms part of the design of the book, I guess.
There you go. There you go.
And yeah, it was quite remarkable. But this could be a colleague, but it could be a friend, it could be a spouse. It doesn't have to be a kind of, it doesn't have to be a work
Mm-mm.
person, right? It's just someone who is going to keep you accountable.
Yeah. And I think the importance in this is um, when it's sharing. Like
Yeah,
that's the power, because when I share, I cement it in my brain. It's just I'm using, I'm connecting those brain things more when I am sharing. I'm
yeah, yeah,
teaching, I'm multiplying, and I'm discovering. Because if I have an accountability partner and you go through this book with them, you are going to learn not only about yourself, but you are going to learn so much about that person, so much. And you're going to be able to share those things and live them together. And you'll be able to laugh and you'll be able to cry and you'll be able to go, you'll have some aha moments together. And those little micro aha moments are what are going to unleash and transform you through life. It's not those grandiose moments normally. It's the
yeah,
little
yeah.
millions of little micro impressions, the little deposits into that brand account, that personal brand account that we make over time that are going to increase our brand over time.
I think it's probably important to say that while you have aimed this at leaders, there's a lot in here that would be useful for people in all sorts of aspects of their lives, right? It's not,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I've had a
Yeah,
kind of thinking,
and obviously I'm in the leadership space.
yeah,
I built a book for leaders.
yeah,
I was even writing this thing going, because I have a whole group of beta readers who I'm super grateful for.
yeah,
I really value their time and their love and support of me. But I had, there's a small section of those that
yeah,
are staying at home with their children, raising their kids, taking a break from their careers, or they've chosen to stay home and do that. And they're going, well, I don't really lead anybody, so I don't know if I could really, get anything out of this. I said, no, don't. Before you say that, just try it on. The language is probably for that leader at times, but if you read it as a person, you're going to get something out of it. And I was
yeah.
like, I could just put a new cover on this and put like, a 52-week guide for the
For a parent,
intentional stay-at-home mom. Like I could totally do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
you will become better and a better parent, better sibling, better boss, better whatever. But yeah, it's
Pa-
targeted the leader right now, but it could be it for anybody.
Parenting's definitely the time where I've kind of learnt a lot about my leadership fails. I would say because kids are just sort of brutally honest in their feedback, and you can't fire your kid, right? So
So true. I always earlier on in my career, I um I co-wrote. He did most of it with a family therapist. He asked me to write a small section of his book called Precious Time. It's an older book about parenting. And he was like, could you write something in there about, building a family brand? Like, what does that mean? And how do you do that? And I was like, that's an interesting thought.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
actually kind of put our family in this idea of a corporation. We've got, leaders of the company, which are, the parents. We've got employees of the company, which are the kids, and the way that they represent our family, who we are unified as a family. It says a lot about us. And I think
Mm.
that we have that. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, yes, we cannot fire them. For real. We think we
Yeah,
can. We think we
yeah.
can at sometimes,
Go
but
to your room.
yeah, that's about it.
No.
That's about it.
Oh, okay. So look, we're coming up for time. The show Power of 10 is named after this Ran Charles Eames film about the relative size of things in the universe called Powers of 10. And so the question is, the final question of every guest is, what one small thing is either overlooked or could be redesigned that would have an outsized effect on the world?
I was gonna poke a little fun at this and just say knees. Like I've had 4 ACL surgeries. I've had 2 meniscus surgeries. I've had a bone graft on one of them. And I was just like,
You
I
can go
think
for knees if you want.
I
That's all right.
I think when, God was like doing this thing, if you believe in such a thing, he was kind of like, oh, I forgot the knees. We got to get this. We got a deadline pressing right now. Does anybody have any ideas for knees? And somebody was like, I got something I was experimenting with. Okay, just throw it in there. That's what I think happened because my knees are trashed from
You
way
think knees are
way
like
too
the
much thought.
MVP of body joints?
I think that is the problem. I think
Okay.
that if we had better knees, the whole world would be a bit different. I think that orthopedic surgeons wouldn't have as much money, but I think that
Yeah.
I think that that's probably what it is. But I just was throwing it out there as something. I was like, gosh, what could be redesigned? And as a designer, you walk around and you're going, yeah, that could have been better, or that could have been better. That who chose that
That
typeface? Like
knees are fine. I've had everything from nail clippers to glass slaughterhouses. So
there
there's
you
been a
go.
range.
There you go. There you go. I was thinking. So I was thinking about that. But what's really great, and what's I don't know if it's really great or not. It's maybe created design snobs out of my kids, but they will walk around. I mean, as 12-year-olds and go, that font sucks, Dad. I'm like, I know. Good
You've done
job.
your job well as a
Good.
parent. Like, okay.
I'm like, thank you for noticing that. That's fantastic. You're a font snob at 12 years old.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
very good. Yeah, no, eye for detail. So listen, where can people find you online?
Well, you can go to skotwaldron.com. That's SKOTWALDRON.com. And you can look for me wherever you find podcasts at Unlocked with Skot Waldron. Now you can find me on Amazon because I am officially an author. I never thought I could say that, but I can say it now. So you can find me on Amazon, YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel where I put a lot of little leadership video clips, short, punchy ones up there, as well as all my episodes of my podcast are on there as well. So
Okay.
that's where you can find me.
Okay, but if people go to skotwaldron.com, they'll find that's the launching pad for everything else. Will they find?
Yeah, I
Or
got
they'll just
stuff.
Google your name.
I got stuff for sure.
Thank you so much for being my guest on Power of 10.
Yeah, Andy, it was good. I loved, if anybody wants to check out our episode together, you were on my show
That's right.
previously.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant episode. So it's out there, it's live. People can look you up and look me up and find us there. And we had a great discussion. I appreciate you
Brilliant.
adding light and wisdom to my crowd as well.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for being my guest, and thank you for having me on. Um, have a wonderful book launch, and I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening and watching and listening to Power of 10. You can find more on the podcast feed now on YouTube. You just search for my name, actually, either on YouTube or you'll find Power of 10 on everywhere we get podcasts. You can find me as Apolaine, Apolaine on pkm.social on Mastodon. You can find me on Twitter. I'm not really there anymore. You'll find all the links and everything that your heart desires on Polaine.com. You'll find more about my leadership coaching practice, online courses, my newsletter, and called Doctor's Note. All the links are in the show notes down here on YouTube, in your podcast player, if you're listening to it on your podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to give it a rating on iTunes or thumbs up on YouTube. If you have any thoughts, put them in the comments or get in touch. All the links and everything are in the show notes. Thanks for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time.